Welcome to the module on voluntary organizations in India, role of CAPART and VANI. Learning objective of this module. The objective of this module is to give a basic idea on two important leading voluntary organizations which plays a coordinating and nodal role in voluntary action in India. The module would help the students to get a basic information on CAPART and VANI activities. Voluntary organizations and voluntary action. Voluntary organizations acts as a catalyst of social development, providing important services to the society. According to the United Nations, voluntary organizations are also known as third sector initiatives. In India, voluntary organizations can be registered as societies, as charitable trusts or as a non-profit companies under the central or state laws. However, any voluntary action includes activities like developmental, political and catalytic. What is a development activity? A developmental activity aims at poor directly by delivering various services for the benefit of the target group, and a political activity is an activity which is directed at a government level. The aim is to influence the authority to take action to create such conditions as would improve the life of the poor. A catalyst activity aims to influence the public way which the voluntary organization expects will begin action. Now, we will be looking into the voluntary efforts in India. In India, voluntary efforts has always been an integral component of its culture. The derivation and growth of the voluntary sector in India has been formed by two major influences. The first, the indigenous tradition and value system of Indian society. Second, the result of the interaction between Indian society and developed countries. The voluntary sector has been a long history of contribution to Indian social growth and change. Voluntary organizations in India are involving actively in the social, economic and cultural development of our nation along with the other stakeholders. State is recognizing the need and importance of voluntary organizations. It also initiated some registered societies like Council for Advancement of People's Action and Rural Technology, National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, National Dairy Development Board, etc. At the same time, government also recognizes private voluntary initiatives like Voluntary Action Network in India, VANI and CAPART activities which work for the standardization of the voluntary sector. Now, we will be looking into the profile and activities of the CAPART. CAPART is an autonomous body under the Ministry of Rural Development of Government of India, which was set up in the year 1986. CAPART was registered as a voluntary society under the Societies Registration Act of India in the year 1860. Two societies have been amalgamated and merged into one society, and the present organization is known as CAPART. The main objective of CAPART is to involve people through voluntary organizations in the implementation of the development programs and need-based innovative projects. The main activities of the CAPART, that is what we are going to discuss. The first main activity of the CAPART is encouraging, promoting and assisting voluntary action in the implementation of the projects for the enhancement of rural prosperity. Second, promoting voluntary action through grassroots level planning, organizing seminars and workshops, providing financial assistance for innovative and need-based projects, selecting and encouraging appropriate and need-based rural-based technologies, addressing the issues of the rural poverty through various innovative strategies, carrying out research studies and promoting young professionals in the area of rural development, respecting the ideas of the voluntary organizations in the rural sector and listening to their voices and working closely with rural voluntary organizations and strengthening their activities with the weaker sections of the society. Now, we will be discussing about the major programs of CAPART. The first major program of the CAPART is public cooperation. This program is a multidimensional approach oriented, and the thrust of the program is based on the concept of participation. In this program, various stakeholders are actively expected to participate in the design, implementation and monitoring and evaluation of the program. These activities are primarily focusing on the marginalized and disadvantaged sections of the rural flock of this country. Second program is advancement of rural technology. This program focuses on the enhancement of rural technology through various modes and organizes a variety of training programs, capacity building sessions, field visits and feasibility studies. The third program is organization of beneficiaries. Under the organization of the beneficiary program, awareness creation strategy is used to help the beneficiaries. In this scheme, support is provided for poor communities and groups through voluntary organizations. The scheme is also intended the empowerment of the target group by increasing their capacities and skills. It also creates a consciousness in the mind of the people on policies, schemes and various legal entitlements to the rural poor. The next program is disability action. CAPART gives emphasis to the addressing the emerging needs of the disabled from the rural parts of India. So, this section has taken different steps to enhance the social economic integration of the persons with disabilities in the communities. Community based rehabilitation programs is a major initiative under the disability action program of CAPART. The next program is marketing development. The marketing development department of the CAPART is started in 1989, and the focus area of this department is to provide opportunities and to explore and sustain market linkages to rural producers. So, this section regularly organizes rural product melas and various types of exhibitions, stalls in prime locations with the participation of the people. The next program of the CAPART is Prime Minister's Rural Development Fellowship Scheme. This scheme is initiated in the year 2011 by CAPART. The scheme enhances the capacity of a selected bright young professionals from various academic institutions. Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai is a supporting agency which helps to find out appropriate candidates for this scheme, and the stipend amount for each fellow is rupees 50,000 per month. Now, we will be discussing on corporate social responsibility program of the CAPART. CAPART associates with various corporate social responsibility activities of various companies. This association helps in better collaboration, coordination and implementation of sustainable programs of the CAPART. So, this program brings the synergy of the voluntary organizations and corporates for the cause of the rural development. Now, we will be discussing on Technology Resource Center of the CAPART. CAPART promotes Technology Resource and Training Center in various parts of our country. Voluntary organizations are selected as Technology Resource and Training Center, and it provides an in-depth training in various subjects like organic farming. The Technology Resource and Training Center enhances the technical, managerial and implementation skills of the voluntary organizations and its individuals. These training centers also provide trainings for grassroots level voluntary organizations, farmer groups and academic institutions in specialized areas. CAPART provides financial assistance for Technology Resource and Training Center. An example of a CAPART Technological Resource Center is Vivekananda Girijan Kalyan Kendra Technology Resource Center situated in Mysore, Karnataka state. Now, we will be discussing on the head offices and regional committees of the CAPART. The head office of the CAPART is situated in New Delhi and it consists of 9 regional offices. Following are the 9 regional offices of CAPART. First, regional center of the CAPART in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, Bhubaneswar in Orissa, Guwahati in Assam, Dharwad in Karnataka, Hyderabad in Telangana, Jaipur in Rajasthan, Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh, Patna in Bihar and Chandigarh in the Union Territory. So, the geographical coverage of the regional committee and their functions are determined by the executive committee of CAPART. A regional committee of CAPART can sanction a project proposal up to rupees 25 lakhs. The Honorable Union Minister for Rural Development is the chairman of the CAPART and the secretary of the ministry is the vice chairman of CAPART. Now, we will be discussing on the schemes of CAPART. The first scheme of CAPART is promotion of voluntary action in rural development. The second scheme is organization of beneficiaries scheme. The third scheme is watershed conservation and development program. The fourth scheme is advancement of rural technologies scheme and the last scheme is disability scheme. Now, we will be discussing on the second organization called VANI. VANI is otherwise known as Voluntary Action Network India. VANI was started in the year 1988 towards building a society where volunteerism and voluntary organizations can play a dominant and constructive role in social cohesion, economic empowerment and nation building. VANI completed 25 years in the year 2013. In the year 2010, VANI is recognized by Government of India as an apex body of the voluntary sector and invited to various platforms for policy formations for different programs. Vision and mission of VANI. The vision of the VANI is to work towards building a society where volunteerism and voluntary organizations can play a dominant and constructive role in social cohesion, economic empowerment and nation building. The mission statement of the VANI is to act as a platform for research, advocacy, capacity building, sharing and learning on issues related to volunteerism and voluntary organizations. Now, we will be discussing on the objectives of the VANI. The objectives of the VANI are justice and equality, participation, accountability and transparency, reciprocity and mutual respect and knowledge. As a leading voluntary organization, VANI has done appreciable work and has contributed enormously towards the sustainable development of the voluntary sector. In 1990, VANI called the nation to observe March 12 annually as Voluntary Action Day, a day in which society is sensitized about the need for voluntary sector. And Voluntary Action Day has now been extended to Voluntary Action Period, that is from 12th March to 6th April every year. Now, we will be discussing about the key initiatives of the VANI. One of the key initiatives of the VANI is their role in National Policy for Voluntary Sector 2007. In the year 2007, VANI played a key role in developing National Policy for Voluntary Organization along with the Planning Commission of India. The National Policy for Voluntary Sector 2007, which recognizes voluntary organization in India and gives much emphasis on the concept of collaboration of voluntary organizations in various levels. The second key initiative of the VANI is an appeal to the Prime Minister of India for regulatory mechanisms for voluntary organizations. So, VANI appealed to the Prime Minister of India for developing a regulatory mechanism for voluntary organizations in India. And the another key initiative of the VANI is their involvement in draft National Multi-State Societies Registration Bill. The draft National Multi-State Societies Registration Bill released by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs was analyzed by VANI, and a feedback is given to the ministry from a perspective of voluntary organizations. The next main initiative of VANI is to developing a guiding principle document for voluntary organization. As we discussed earlier, one of the core value of VANI is accountability and transparency. VANI developed a guiding principle document for voluntary organizations to achieve better accountability and transparency of voluntary organizations. VANI also played a major role in promotion of voluntary sector agenda. So, VANI played a role to put forward voluntary sector agenda, and some key initiatives are played by VANI in this regard. The first is mechanism for regular conversation between senior officials of Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, and leaders of the voluntary sector. Second, fostering social responsibility in higher education during the 12th 5-year plan. Third, FCRA related matters, in particular the mass cancellation of the FCRA approvals of the voluntary organizations. And fourth, contribution of the development sector in developing countries. And now we will be discussing on the publications of the VANI. VANI initiated many publications in the area of voluntary sector and allied areas. Some of their publications are Youth and Voluntarism, Local Self-Governance, the Role of Voluntary Organizations, Nagarpalika 74th Amendment Act of 1992, the role of the voluntary organizations, laws, rules and regulations for the voluntary sector, report of the South Asian Conference, voluntary development organizations, the guiding principles, and a handbook on good governance and model policies for voluntary organizations. By summing up the session, the module would give a basic understanding on two major voluntary organizations working in India, namely CAPART and VANI, which are playing a nodal and important role in coordinating the activities of the voluntary organizations of this country. We also discussed about the objectives and activities, their key initiatives and contributions to the development sector. Thank you very much for listening to this lecture.